Welcome back. This is Facebook Auction Live. Last month, we had an amazing conversation about conversion optimization and driving ROI. I highly encourage you to check that video out if you haven't already done so. Today, we are going to speak about targeting and placements, and as advertisers, how you can improve your business performance. Our Facebook experts on targeting, placement, and delivery joining us today are Stephanie, Romnick, and Adam. We have already received some amazing questions. But before we begin with the Q&A, I just want to take this opportunity to take you through what placement optimization really is. So placement optimization can help you reach more people more efficiently. Imagine the large circle represents your target audience. You may add Facebook to your plan to reach a large portion of your target audience. Then you may add Instagram and Audience Network to increase your reach. However, if you run separately on Instagram and Facebook, you may reach the same people on both platforms. This is called duplicated reach, and is what usually makes incremental reach expensive. On the other hand, with placement optimization, you can reach your target audience holistically across Instagram, Facebook, and Audience Network. That means more reach for the same or lower cost than running separately. You can also only reach more people by opting into placement optimization, but if you can reach those people more efficiently, running on Instagram and Facebook independently. Let's go to our first question. We all know the benefits of adding IG as a placement, but what about Audience Network?
I think there's a lot of benefits of adding Audience Network, specifically when we talk about getting more conversions at a lower cost. So what we found as a whole is that when you do add Audience Network to your website conversion campaigns, we see an increase of 12% of total conversions and a decrease of, on average, 8% per CPA. So there's a very bottom line benefit of having Audience Network as part of your placement strategy.
Okay, and what is the best way to test the placement optimization?
Yeah, so testing can be a little bit difficult and a little bit counterintuitive. A lot of people, when they look to test things like Facebook and Instagram, they set up an ad set with Facebook and they set up an ad set with Instagram and they sort of run them and compare performance to each other. And that's actually not the best way to test for placement optimization. The best way is to really set up one ad set with Facebook, the other ad set with Facebook and another placement. That can be Instagram, that can be Audience Network, that could be all three of them. Set up the same budget for each ad set, same targeting, run them for the same amount of time, and then compare performance from one cell to the other cell. And that will give you a really good idea of that incremental reach or the incremental costs or drop in your conversions that you get when you add those placements to a Facebook placement.
So a lot of advertisers ask, if performance is actually cheaper on Facebook, does it make sense to not use Instagram?
Yeah, I think when you look at those tests, you're going to see some results that seem like you should take actions like that, right? So you may look into those cells and see that Facebook has a slightly lower CPA than Instagram does, or same thing for Audience Network. But the way that our delivery system works is we actually, look across all three of those inventory sources and we find the cheapest outcomes that we can possibly find for you. So that means for the lowest price, we'll get exactly what you need, depending on the objective you've chosen. So maybe you've chosen conversions. We're going to go find the most cost-effective conversions for you, regardless of what platform they're on. And that will cause some differences in pricing. But if you remove Instagram, for example, and that was a higher CPA, we're just going to have to replace that with even more expensive CPAs that we would have found on Facebook.
Okay, and if Audience Network is so great, how come I just can't use Audience Network?
Yeah, so Audience Network was really built to be an extension of your Facebook campaign, right? It's, our biggest value proposition is our targeting, right? And our people-based marketing, where we allow you to go target the people in the audience that you want. And Audience Network is a really great way to sort of extend those campaigns across apps and websites all over the world. And so because it's supposed to be an extension of your Facebook campaign, you have to buy Audience Network with Facebook.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to questions from the audience. All right. So question number 1. Seed audiences. We have a question from Craig from Canada. I'm curious with respects to lookalike audiences. Is it more beneficial to have more timely data or more overall data?
That's a fantastic question. One that we ask ourselves that all the time. And I really think it's around what is it that you want to do with that audience? So, for instance, we have Mother's Day coming up, right? And so it would make sense for us to get a seed audience from seasonal data from a year ago. And we would then get that seed audience to make a lookalike of people who bought on Mother's Day last year who are most likely going to buy it this year. I mean, a great example of this was an e-commerce in Hong Kong called Casetify, where they sell personalized cases for, laptops, even an Apple Watch or a smartphone, and they get your Instagram pictures and they print it out and make it into this wonderful case. And so they do that. And what they did in their 2016 Mother's Day strategy was to get the seed audience of 2015, get a lookalike off of that, and the results are staggering, like 3x sales. So that's definitely something when we think about a seasonal strategy. When we think of something more non-seasonal, right? Just year-round, anything that we want to do, it would make sense for sure for you to get a more recent audience, because most of our products that we see on Facebook have a consumer life cycle that's rather like short and quick. So we want to make sure that you cannot lose that momentum and take advantage of that recent audience to keep building and driving more lifetime value for your customers.
Okay. And oftentimes advertisers want to know more about daily volatility. For example, if they don't change their bids, why would the CPM or CPA start to increase?
So the way Facebook works, it's an auction system, right? And so essentially there are participants in the auction and everyone's bidding for impressions. And we choose the impressions which have the highest value to the user and advertiser value and to the advertiser. Now, the auction pressure or the number of participants in the auction, the CPMs, all of that vary. The advertisers' bids vary, and consequently the outcomes vary. So one simple example of this would be holiday season. There are a lot more advertisers on the platform during the holiday season, so you'd expect the CPMs to be higher. Now, that doesn't mean that the CPAs are higher, but effectively, because that's contracted, the advertisers are there because people are converting more, people are buying more things around the holiday season. So that's why you can see day-to-day volatility, even month, like start of month would be slightly different from the middle of the month towards the end, and different from the end of the month, which has something to do with like budgeting that advertisers generally use.
Okay, Ramnik, I want to stay with you for a second. So we just got in a question from Jordan from South Carolina. He wants to know if an ad set is performing well, but I don't want to remove part of the target audience or add more audiences. Is it best to adjust an existing ad set or create a new set?
That's a great question. I think that's a very important question because, so if an ad set's doing well and you want to add audiences or remove audiences, anytime you change that's basically you're changing targeting. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're changing targeting, we create a fresh object ID at the back end. So there are some things which sort of reset your learning. So the idea is if you create a new ad, you're resetting learning. So Jordan, I believe, does not want to lose those learnings. But unfortunately, if you're changing your targeting, you're sort of resetting those learnings. We would say just create a new ad set with the new targeting, and we'll hopefully relearn the learnings, but there isn't a very, very good answer that we have there at the moment.
Okay. And to talk about a more specific business case, Colin from New York wants to know, for businesses like ours, limited by geography, are there any ways to optimize placements and targeting that either don't, one, limit the audience size, or two, does limit the audience size, but allows us to still get delivery OCPM?
That's, another very good question. So targeting is very closely related with conversion optimization. And let me tell you, so when I think about optimization, right, what you're asking Facebook to do is you give your entire targeting audience, and you're asking Facebook to optimize based on whatever we know, that small group of people who are going to convert for me. So now, if your converters are limited by geography, so an example that I really like is, assuming I'm a barbershop in New York City, right? I have a small shop in East Village, and my conversion is people signing up, like registering on my website, on my page for a haircut. Now, your by a very nature of your business, you're limited by the geography. So you probably will not be advertising in Texas, for example. That doesn't mean our platform isn't for you. I think that is the best use case in some sense of our platform, because what our system is trying to do is you provide a targeting which is broad enough, and then we will find what characteristics are common amongst the people who are converting for you. So now, on the flip side, let me talk about the audience size issue. Audience size really doesn't matter. It's in some sense, our system is getting signals from conversions. So if you're providing us with enough conversions, our system is learning the characteristics between a converter and a non-converter, because that's what we want. So it's not, I wouldn't focus too much on the audience size, but I would focus on like conversions and providing us information so that a system can differentiate between people.
Okay. I have another question. Stephanie, this one is going to be for you.
Okay.
So it's a targeting question
All right.
from Craig, who's over in Canada.
Same Craig from the first one?
Yeah, same Craig.
Hey, Craig.
So Craig basically wants to know, like, what are some of the targeting offerings? Like, what's new in
Okay.
the targeting arena?
Man, we got some exciting stuff, right? So to your point of targeting and how is it that it best works with our delivery system, a best example that we have today is targeting expansion. So you would leverage our interest-based targeting for website conversions and mobile app installs, and then it'll have defaulted as an opt-in option for us to do what's called expansion targeting, where if we predict and we see that in fact you will get more results by removing the constraints of interests, we will do that for you so that we can give you more results. Okay. So it's a good way for us to be able to match what we offer best, which is people-based marketing and targeting, while also leveraging our second best thing, which is also delivery, right? Okay. I think that's the first one. I think also to Craig's point is talking about engagement custom audiences. So your first question was around seeds, right? So one of the great seeds that we have is what goes on in our own platform. And this can be engagement custom audiences from video, from Canvas, from lead ads, all sorts of sources, which allow you to retarget customers, get that impression one more time, increase your chances to bring them down the funnel and get those desired conversions.
Okay, so
quick question on this expanded targeting.
Yeah.
So am I understanding this correctly? So let's say I am targeting people who like taekwondo.
Okay.
And then our system would be like, it start serving ads to other people, and maybe the characteristic is you've forgotten people who like karate, and somehow those people are also converted, and we'll figure that out over time. Is that somehow?
Yeah, it's similar to that. And I feel that if you are, let's say, your main objective is mobile app installs, right?
Yeah.
And you really don't care where the conversion comes from. You're not really constrained, like that case of New York, where you're not constrained to one geography. There's an opportunity for you to even leverage worldwide targeting, where you're just going to optimize for what it is that you want as your desired result, website conversions or even mobile app install, and really just give it to the best region possible and see what are the best results that you get from there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I want to stay on that point real quick with conversions. Ramnik, this question is for you. So Josh from California wants to know, when an ad enters an auction, how does Facebook take into account the estimated or historical CTR and CVR based on targeting type and placement? And please explain also what CTR and CVR is.
So for every given impression, what we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize the value to the advertiser and value to the people on the platform. So the value to the advertiser is a combination of what their bid is, like how much do they actually value the event, and Facebook's estimates of like click-through rate and conversion rate. So CTR is click-through rate and CVR is conversion rate. And what Facebook is trying to do is trying to estimate these things. So high converters will have high conversion rates and high click-through rates. Low converters will have lower conversion click-through rates. So there are lots and lots of really, really smart people who are trying to come up with the best algorithms to predict click-through and conversion rates. And these are really tough problems to solve. Like what I'm doing is I'm telling you, I'm going to show you an impression, and we're trying to predict what is the probability that you're going to click and convert. So we have these really smart people, and they're trying to come up with features which actually explain and help us in the prediction. Some of those features are related to your campaign, some of those features are related to your account history, and so on and so forth. So what we do is the learnings that we've already attained from your account, we sort of use it to populate the features. That being said, I think your ads performance, like the individual ads performance, is sort of the key metric. Like there are lots and lots of features, but the key features are your performance of the ad by itself. So we take that into account, but the ads performance at some point in time becomes the overwhelming factor in the features that we're looking at.
Okay, and I want to pivot back to Adam 1 second. So we've been getting a few questions on something you said earlier. So what are the controls available for Audience Network? Can you speak to the sensitive industries, blacklisting, review processes, anything like that?
Yeah, so I think at Facebook, it's not just the Audience Network, right? We've been launching a few placements that have a little bit more context to them, right? That may rely on third-party publisher content, like the Audience Network does, but Instant Articles does that as well as InStream. And all of those placements are generally rolled out. Advertisers, if they haven't already seen them in their accounts, will see them in the coming months. And we recognize that they're inherently different from feed, right? In feed, I have a news feed, obviously, of content that is there for me, right? It's based on sort of the things that I like or the people that I'm friends with. Other types of things that Facebook thinks will be interesting to me, current news. And each story has nothing to do with the other story, right? It's just like, I know that my aunt's birthday party has nothing to do with, my crazy uncle, which has nothing to do with, my girlfriend's post, and then the ad in between is not related to those. But when you start to advertise in, different publishers' content, where there's sort of more of a theme, we recognize that there's more controls that you sort of have to give people to ensure that advertisers are comfortable there. And so we have a few controls, really three. One is we have opt-outs. Like if you want to opt out of a placement, you can do that within our placement selector. So if you don't feel comfortable with InStream, or you don't feel comfortable with Instant Articles, or you don't feel comfortable with Audience Network, we can sort of opt out. Now, obviously, that is like the most extreme control that you could use. And so we have two other controls that are a little bit more granular. One of them is category controls. So we are actually going to be launching, starting today, ironically, you didn't know this, a new set of category controls that allow you to control content across all three of those placements. So there's going to be 5 categories that you can use. An example is like debatable social issues. So if you don't want to run next to content that may be a little bit more provocative, then you can sort of block that, and that will block you in InStream. It'll also block you in Instant Articles, and it'll also block you in Audience Network. And then the third level down is domain and app level blocking. So we obviously have Instant Articles that are uploaded to Facebook, and they sort of have a root domain of where they came from. And then we also have apps in the Audience Network. If there's specific publishers that you don't want to run on, you can upload a block list with that domain name or that app, and we will not run on that Instant Article or on that website or app in the Audience Network.
Okay, and what would you say to advertisers who actually have tested Audience Network in the past, but the way they actually tested Audience Network, for whatever reason, they're not experiencing the performance that they initially thought they were going to get?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Audience Network is a relatively new product for us. It's only been around, I think, at scale for less than 2 years. And so, one side of that is we've improved the product dramatically over the last 2 years. When you start delivering into environments and apps that we don't control end to end, there was a lot of learning that went on and how we optimize in that environment compared to newsfeed. And like we were explaining before, auction is super complicated, and there's a lot of pieces of data that go into that. And the publisher side is a really good instance of a place where we had to learn. And so, one, I would just encourage people to continue to try it. It's something we're constantly investing in and constantly making better. And then the second piece is definitely make sure that you're setting it up correctly. I think a lot of people ran a campaign with Facebook and the Audience Network and looked at performance, and maybe CPAs were a little bit higher on Audience Network, or the CPCs weren't where they wanted to be, or the cost per install Maybe you're measuring like something more advanced like LTV, or which is lifetime value, or return on ad spend. Make sure you're testing it right, and which is the way we explained earlier, which is set up something with an ad set with Facebook, set it up with Facebook and Audience Network, and compare those two together. Not run Facebook and Audience Network in one ad set and then break it down and compare those two.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ramnik, I want to come to you now real quick, and this is a little bit more about optimization,
Yeah.
conversions. So we have a question from Hamad. What would count as positive account history versus negative account history? Like, what are the things that are taken into consideration for both?
So our system isn't just going to say, what the number of features which go corresponding to the account. So for example, the account history will go in, and I don't want to, the importance of these features might be minuscule, but these are potentially the features which go in, like, and what is the XOUT rate of the account, what is the conversion rate of the account, so on and so forth. So I don't think there's a very distinct thing about positive versus negative. If your account has had way too many XOUTs, that is probably a bad thing. But that is probably reflecting on your ads having a very high XOUT.
Yeah. So what if I created a campaign and I was getting a lot of XOUTs, but then I created a newer campaign? Are the XOUTs that I created, the XOUTs that I got before going to be counted against me, or like how does that work?
Yes and no. Like yes, yeah, theoretically yes, but I think the impact is going to be pretty minimal unless your account has been. So there's one thing, like your account has got so many XOUTs that we blacklist your account. Like that is an extreme case. You're probably doing something which a platform is like, people are reporting your content because it's not suitable for the platform. Now, that's one extreme case, but other than that, I don't think it matters that much. I think it's going to be the accounts, the ad IDs the ads performance, the ad sets performance, which we're basically trying to take into account more.
Okay.
So I would not jump to an extreme step of creating new accounts just for the sake of it. I don't think they're I don't think that learning is really that important.
All right. And Adam, this next question is for you. So Ree wants to know, if we use auto placement and Facebook automatically decides not to show our ads on Audience Network, should we still include Audience Network?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely should. It's going to be a very rare case that we don't decide to show ads on Audience Network. What auto placements really does is, for each impression, we look across all of our placements and we try to find the best outcome at the most efficient cost for you. And so from campaign to campaign and ad set to ad set, you may see a different distribution depending on what your campaign goal is, what your objective is, the creative that you're using. There's tons and tons of different inputs into what could affect that delivery. And our delivery system is pretty powerful, and we do see a lot of advertisers from campaign to campaign see a pretty fundamental shift in that distribution. They might run a campaign and they see 80% on Facebook and 20% on Audience Network. And then the next time they might see that shift to 60-40. But you shouldn't see that as like a negative. It's really a positive that our delivery system is powerful enough that for each and every campaign, we really can go and find the right outcomes for you. And so in an inverse way, it's almost proof that we're doing our job.
Exactly.
And that we're finding the right outcomes for you.
So I think that's a very, very important question. Our system doesn't choose where to play. Like in placement optimization, our system does, unless you explicitly provide us with constraints, like no Audience Network or no Instagram, our system will put you in auctions in every single one of those places. So any person in your targeting group who shows up on Audience Network or who shows up on Facebook or Instagram, we are computing your click-through, our estimates of your click-through rate, your conversion rate. And we're trying to see if serving this impression is going to be valuable to you as an advertiser and also to the people. And there's also a component of the competition. So we are not explicitly making that decision. The decision we've decided to make is to provide you with the maximum value from our platform.
Okay.
Or we allocate impressions based on the value they provide to the advertisers and the people. So we're basically most efficiently trying to allocate our impressions. Now, it could be that in one campaign you get a large allocation to audience network because we think they are the most valuable impressions for you in this particular campaign. Versus in the next campaign, it's like Facebook is more valuable than Instagram, and so on. So I wouldn't focus too much. Broad targeting is generally good. Placement optimization is a way that you're broadening your targeting.
Okay.
So unless there's a very good reason to constrain your targeting, I think broader targeting is good.
Do all you guys agree with that for the most part? Because it sounds like what you guys are saying is, in most, if not close to all situations, you should really go across every single placement.
Yeah. I mean, another way that I like to think about placement optimization is, let's say you have a dinner party and you're going to cook for your friends, right? I like to entertain, so I have people over, and for me, it's a big, big challenge of trying to get, I have a budget, right, that I can't go over, and then I have to feed 6 people that come to my house, and then one of them is a vegetarian.
That would be me.
She did this to me. And so I have to then go to like, well, I need to decide how, I need to have, like, these are my goals, right? Feed my 6 friends at a given budget. Let's say the budget is $200. So I have $200 to be able to feed my friends, and then I need to then go and get these results, meaning the food. Now, I have a series of grocery stores that I could go to, right? So I could go into each and every one. In my neighborhood, there's like 3. So I could go to each of those 3 and see, well, which one has the best price for the vegetarian options or the meat options. But that isn't an optimal way of me using my time. It really isn't, because I'm going in and out, I get distracted, is really not the best way. What would be ideal is if I could magically find a way to see all the offerings within the 3 different grocery stores and pick which ones are the most cost efficient, meaning the lowest cost. And that's what placement optimization does for our advertisers. It removes any of these barriers. It doesn't say that this grocery store is different or better or even more expensive. It allows you to have access to a whole like plethora of results. And that's really where we can double down and give our advertisers the best value, by removing this constraint, or let's say breaking down these walls of placements.
Okay, so we have a few questions left, but before I go any further, just want to remind everybody out there listening to please like this video. So moving on to the next one, we have a question from Stuart. How many conversions does it take Facebook to have to optimize efficiently?
So the more the better. But that being said, so some numbers obviously too low. Like if you give us 5 conversions, like there are literally 5 data points that we're meant to learn off. So our general philosophy is 25 conversions per week is sort of the minimum you should be providing us. Ideally, a lot more. We understand that there are constraints in the sense that you can't get conversions, so on and so forth. But any less than 25 would be a little, like, at least 25 per week would be a pretty good answer to that one. But if you can't reach that 25 number, because either you're selling a very high consideration event, it's a very, very tiny, like it's a very, very niche audience or niche product, you could redefine what a conversion means, or you could go higher up in the funnel. And so if the conversion pixel is placed on a checkout, like you could place on add to cart. That way you're providing us more information about who are the likely people, who are the people likely to add to cart. And hopefully, like as you go up the funnel, you're sort of losing a little bit of information, because what you really care about are checkouts, but hopefully they're pretty well correlated, add to cart and your conversions or your checkouts. So that would be one case in which you're redefining a conversion in case you can't get enough conversions.
Okay, you said 25 conversions earlier. Are you talking about the ad set level, or are you talking about the account level? Which?
So at the ad set level.
Okay, cool. So we have a question from Abdullah. How does overlapping audiences impact delivery?
So it's a little nuanced answer. So let's say you're you're running 3 ads targeting all of the US. So what exactly happens in the backend is the following. For each ad, like let's say you're running 3 ads targeting all of the US, I show up in Facebook, the 3 ads we'll compute the click-through and the conversion rates for the 3 ads. What we'll do afterwards is the one which has the highest click-through and conversion rate, because the creatives are different or some other account, the ad history is slightly different, we will pick that one up because that impression has the highest value to the advertiser. So we'll pick that impression up and we'll drop the other two. Because we don't want you competing with yourself, and we don't want, like, for people, we want to show a plethora of impressions and advertisers, and we don't want to show like 2 impressions from the same advertiser at the same time. So this is what we end up doing, which is we'll drop the ones which are less, which have lower conversion and click-through rates. Now, that is not a problem if your targeting is really, really broad. That becomes a problem if your targeting is really narrow. So let's say your targeting group was so narrow that you expected 25 conversions in aggregate from the audience. And now you've got 3 ads targeting that audience. Our system is not able to differentiate. Like that becomes like 8 conversions per ad, and that's probably a bad thing. So deduplication or like audience overlap is a problem if you're on the cusp of like getting that 25 conversions. If it's a very broad targeting audience, I think it's not too much of a problem.
Okay, so while we're talking about audiences, let's move on to lookalike audiences, right? Adam, this question is for you. So Paul wants to know, how often are lookalike audiences updated?
For me? Do you know the answer to that?
I do not. What do you mean updated? In what sense?
So the follow-up is, how much do they change and how often are they updated?
Oh, like if I created from the same seed, I created one today and I created one tomorrow, would they be different?
Yeah.
No. I mean, they're consistent. You know, I think our lookalike audiences are consistently updated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure the frequency at which we're updating them in targeting.
Okay.
But it's much more frequent than every 2 days. I mean, if anything, it's on like an hourly basis or daily basis. It's not a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So I think you should assume when you create an audience and you model it, right, and you create a lookalike, it's updating very, very frequently for you. And you'll see that beginning the second that you upload that. I mean, if you check it halfway through the day, you'll see that your audience is growing pretty significantly.
Okay, we'll definitely follow up with everybody on the exact numbers. If I remember correctly, I think it was 3 to 7 days, last I heard. But
Like, we should also understand the question. Like, I'm not entirely sure what the question actually means.
sure. Yeah, so we'll get back to everybody with that one. So if we don't have any additional questions from the audience, we're going to go to our last segment, right? And the way we're going to do this is I want to hear from each one of you guys. If there's something that you could leave with the audience, one thing that you want to highlight, what would it be? Let's start with you, Stephanie.
I think the thing I would hope everyone leaves here with today is really the sense that targeting is fundamental towards your success on Facebook, and taking the time to know your audience and know your audience within the context of Facebook, and know it in the sense of, well, should I opt in for targeting relaxation? Should I also take into account engagement custom audiences, and really trying to leverage people who view my video or click through my canvas. I hope that people can really double down and build really robust strategies based on their targeting options.
Yeah, and I would say, I would just add to that, that targeting is related to what the end product you're trying to achieve. So targeting is very closely related to the optimization goal that you have. And generally, in case our system is trying to maximize value for you based on the constraints that you provide us. Placement optimization, if you do not opt into placement optimization, you're constraining the system, which means we won't be able to provide you, we'll provide you less value than an unconstrained system. Similarly, if your target audience is very narrow, and unless you have a very good reason to narrow your audience, we are not able to provide you that. An unconstrained audience or including placement optimization is probably better for you than not.
Okay.
You sort of stole my answer, but I have to say it, so that's okay. I think the first one is that, you know, I remember when I first came to Facebook, one of the first things that stuck out to me the most when I started diving into sort of our delivery and targeting products is that everything is optimized for the advertiser. Everything in our algorithms, everything in our interfaces, it's all based on delivering more value to advertisers. And I think that's something that it can be a little bit surprising and sort of you get an eye roll, but like it really truly is. And so if you put that mindset on when you're using our tools, it gives you a little bit of a better perspective as to maybe why delivery is changing or why your CPAs are changing. And it's not that we're perfect, but that is sort of what our goal is all the time with everything that we're giving you. I think the second piece is there's so much in our interfaces that we provide to you guys. And, it is also all very powerful. And so as you guys are sort of testing this stuff out and adopting new products, make sure you're being very intentional about the way you make changes to things, because if you change 6,000 things from one ad set to another, you're going to have no idea what made it successful and what didn't. So be very intentional. When an ad set's not working, change one thing, check back a day later, see if it improved things. It may take a little longer to figure out, exactly how you should run ads on Facebook, but you'll be much more certain about the things that work for you and don't work for you, rather than just, sort of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what works.
All right. Well, Stephanie, Ramnik, Adam, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. We will be sending surveys shortly. Everyone who completes a survey will receive a FAQ document with additional responses to questions we didn't have an opportunity to go over in episodes 1 and 2. For episode 3, we're going to do scaling outside of your home region. Hopefully you guys will come back and join us. And lastly, if you would like to see more videos like this one in the future, again, just want to double down on this point, please like the video so we know who you are. All right, and take care. See you guys next time.